Hi, how are you? My name is Elizabeth Harding Weinstein. I am here with CPS News to talk to you about my case going all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court and the incredible, undeniable corruption that's ensued. I'm not a professional. My point in doing this is to provide other people with information, to name names, to show you how they did it and what tactics they are using in retaliation against articulate pro se litigants, so that you yourself are prepared, can defend yourself should these things happen to you, or should you be bringing a case on your own. Today is Sunday, October 17th, 2021. So my case involves my 3 children who, at the time that they were kidnapped and trafficked by the court, were 17, a month away from 16 and 13. They were trafficked to my husband while he was missing and under an active pedophilia investigation. My husband is Brian Stryker Weinstein. He has a partner, Davis, Polk, and Wardwell. He is a clerk on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which helps when you start seeing the corruption unfold. And he's a partner, as I mentioned, Davis, Polk, and Wardwell, clerk on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and a Yale Law School graduate. So I'm dealing with some deeply embedded, highly influential lawyers who are defending their livelihood. They know once the truth comes out that this starts to unravel. And so they are throwing everything that they can at me. I have been falsely imprisoned. I have been poisoned by judicial order. I have been admitted to a psychiatric facility while there's a video on camera showing that I'm of sound mind and body, fully competent, of no threat to myself or others. And that was in retaliation for filing a federal lawsuit. They have deleted my files. They have tampered with my evidence. They have changed the rules under which I filed at the U.S. Supreme Court. They changed the dates that I filed and the dates that they received the documents and the dates that they posted. Sounds incredible, but I've got all the evidence right here. So I'm going to start talking you through some of this with the case and show you how this has all come to be. And hopefully you can prepare yourself should any of this happen to come to your doorstep. So, and I apologize for the lighting, and as I said, I'm not in any way professional with this stuff. So it's just going to be tricky, and that's it. We're going to have to use our discernment and not worry so much about the glares and the orbs and everything else that comes on here. So let me start by showing you, first and foremost, my case up through the U.S. Supreme Court is, there are 2 of them. There is 21-14, and that is this case here. And that was a writ of certiorari appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court to hear my case regarding a false imprisonment for not wearing a mask. And then the second case is 21, A as in apple, 29, and that is a writ of injunction that was filed to ask the court to vacate an ex parte, ex post facto order of protection that was issued sua sponte, now without any accusatory instruments. Now what you need to understand is ex parte obviously means that the court only heard from one side and it's never allowed me a chance or an opportunity to be heard. But on top of that, the court did this on its own motion. There wasn't even a submission to the court for this motion, nor was there accusatory instruments. And then the court took that order and they backdated it. They backdated it 4 months. So I was issued this false order, which was never actually even served to me. It was just posted on NYSIF, which is in New York court systems, our electronic filing system. And that was posted in case 55866-2020. That's a case that I filed for divorce from my husband after finding his online pedophilia content and sexual solicitation of minors. And my husband began using the courts and the cops as a means to torture and traffic and control my children and I, or my children and me, sorry. And so I filed for divorce, and I've never been allowed access to the court to be heard on any of these bogus orders of protection. And in April, one was issued that was ex post facto, dating back 4 months. So I took that case up through the U.S. Supreme Court to get relief on an emergency injunctive motion to have that order vacated. And that case was first heard or decided on by Sonia Sotomayor, who is the Associate Justice for the Second Circuit. And she denied it. But I've not been able to get a copy of the denial. They've not sent me any information about it. They are only mailing information to my home, knowing that I don't have access to that, and that these very orders are what's preventing me from having access to get my mail, in violation of federal laws, obviously, but yet that's what's happening. And so the court's preventing me access to my mail and to my documents, and then only sending documents there. Because I've been left homeless by the court, I don't have any other address by which to standardly send mail. And so I had directed all court mail to that address, thinking that the court would obviously act lawfully and give me access to my mail, right? Because why wouldn't they? But they're not. So I digress. 21A29, first heard by Sonia Sotomayor, and I've now appealed it after it was denied by her, even though I've not received a copy of the denial. It was just listed on the U.S. Supreme Court docket search, which you can look up yourself. And then I resubmitted it to Justice Clarence Thomas for evaluation. So we'll see. So let me start in the beginning, how this all came to pass. My husband, as I mentioned, was missing and undergoing a pedophilia investigation after I had discovered his online pedophilia content and sexual solicitation of minors. And the children and I confronted my husband and told him that we would help him as long as he agreed not to hurt us anymore, and that he agreed to stop its practice. And we told him that we would, we didn't want the courts and the cops involved because my children were teenagers, and we didn't want to get involved in that way. And we only asked instead that he not hurt us anymore. My husband originally agreed and then went missing, and was missing for weeks at that time. That was, he went missing on May 21st. And towards the end of May, my husband then sent me emails saying that, gaslighting emails, while at the same time working with others to hire contracts to falsify medical documents, to have me falsely committed to a mental institution as a cover for his pedophilia. My husband signed contracts with people. He coordinated with this man, Stephen J. Jones, who was given to him by Eric Grossman, or it was a law partner, law graduate with Eric Grossman from Fordham Law School, who is, Eric Grossman is a chief legal officer at Morgan Stanley, one of my husband's best friends, and where I believe my husband was staying at the time that he was missing for those weeks. He then signed contracts with people and sent them a list of places where to take me. These people coordinated with Eric Grossman to have these gaslighting emails sent to me, paid for these illegal medical services by this company called O'Connor Professional Group on my credit card, which is how I originally was notified of this. They then sent my husband contracts, which he signed. And then sent him these psychiatric resources, what they called, to have me trafficked to a psychiatric facility to give him a cover for his pedophilia, and sent him inpatient psychiatric admission forms. And then my husband separately went and opened bank accounts using our marital assets and demanded all the money be in there by June 1st. Now, June 1st turns out to be the day that my husband went and procured a bogus order of protection in a court that was not even in our jurisdiction, with a judge not in our jurisdiction. And the sole basis for my husband's, I'm going to show you this now, for this order of protection. And I can show you, this is the order of protection here. This is his family offense petition to get the order of protection. You see it's very bland, nothing really on it whatsoever. Signed June 1st, the day of his demand for the money to be in the accounts and his petition to the court. And it's just this one piece of paper. This is the only petition that my husband's ever submitted to the court to have me forcefully removed from my home and from my children's life. Where I was a stay-at-home mother for 17 and a half years, Columbia University graduate, ER-ICU nurse. I've had no previous interaction or trouble with the courts or law my entire life, 48 years, until my husband began using the courts as a means to traffic my children and traffic and extort and coerce me. I have police reports from the incidents in question where he's saying I was stalking him that specifically state, not only was I not stalking him, I left as soon as I was able to find out that he had been missing for weeks, and I went because we didn't know where he was, and we thought he was killing himself at this institution called, it was a palliative care institution that he was at midnight on a Sunday night. And so I thought he was going to buy end-of-life drugs. And as soon as we heard that he wasn't, that he was alive and okay, I immediately left. But this goes to show you that this was a setup by his lawyer, Stephen J. Jones, to get me to go to the institution, and that they asked for the for the cops to lie to me and not let me know that Brian was there or that Stephen J. Jones was his lawyer. So my husband then went to the courts with that family offense petition, and the courts issued him a full, no other petition to the court since, and the courts issued him unlawfully stating both parties present in court, which was not true. I've never been given access to the court or chance to be heard. A full vacate and stay away order, requiring me to vacate my residence and to stay away from my children, who at the time were 17, almost 16 and 13. When the cops came to our house, they originally did not have this order. And they spent 2 hours assessing that my children, they were trying to coerce my children to leave and go with my pedophile husband. My children told the cops at that time, who were Sergeant William Bassett and Officer Raphael, that they would not go with my husband. He'd been missing for weeks after we talked about his pedophilia, and that they were safe in my care. The cops went to leave, and at that time, on a Friday night, my husband then got this new order of protection issued directly to his phone, and the police then came and criminally coerced my children and told them that if they did not go with my husband, that I would be arrested for kidnapping. Now, that's the first important lie that I want you to understand, because the way that our courts and our cops are operating right now is a system of coercion. So they're gonna lie to you and they're gonna tell you things that aren't true. But if you comply with what's not true and what's not legally viable, then they get their way. So there's no downside to them to lying to you about your rights. There's no downside to them to push, to try and get you to comply with unlawful orders, okay? So that happened to me and my children. It was absolutely devastating and the worst day in my entire life. And I've had some pretty bad days since then. On June 5th, 2020, and the courts have been preventing me, even though I'm a stay-at-home mother. I was a children's primary caregiver. I was a children's sole medical caregiver. The courts have been preventing me from directly seeing my children ever since. And I've seen my children less than 9 hours total since that time. And it's been disgusting. It's horrific. But I would not back down, and I would not stop fighting. So I continued to bring I immediately filed for divorce from my husband the following day on June 6, 2020, seeking cruel and unusual treatment, seeking divorce for his cruel and unusual treatment. That's divorce case number 55866-2020. I did that as I mentioned, on June 6th, the following day after I was falsely evicted using these bogus court orders. After that happened, I have been denied access to the court to be heard on any of these orders of protection. All of my motions through this court have been dismissed for bogus procedural reasons. And I'm talking about motions for my husband being non-compliant with giving me access to housing, financing, dissipating marital assets, and most importantly, being in violation of any access to the children. And so this has been a horrific fight for me. I'm going to fast forward a little bit now and get you to understand that how egregious our courts are, and how they collude with one another up through the state and federal courts. So my case was with the Westchester County Divorce Courts. I was able, after 6 months, to get it consolidated out of family court, even though consolidation should have been the normal and standard customary means for the court to take it out of family court and directly into Supreme Court. They pushed it off. They finally consolidated the case, and they dismissed Brian's lawyer for his unethical conduct. It took 6 months and 2 orders to get him dismissed. That was Stephen J. Jones. I then was also being retaliated against by the police, who I had started filing orders with my town on police corruption, because the police had, like I said, trafficked my children to their abuser. They had lied about their role and the law. They had also started harassing me and stating that if I didn't stop fighting for my children, that they were going to arrest me, which they then started doing. They would arrest me and say that I was in violation of the court order, even though I would have a video of being in that exact same location at the exact same time on a day just a week or 2 earlier, where they said, no, absolutely, this is not in violation. The cops would show up and say, we've changed our mind now. You just filed a motion with the courts, or you filed something to show that we were acting inappropriately, so now they would arrest me without just cause. And when I would try and show them the video where I would say this isn't in violation, they would just say, well, we're going to wait till we get to the court and the judge will figure that out for you. Take me in handcuffs in front of my children, which was devastating for the children. And one of the tenets of justice that the courts standardly know is that when somebody uses police force in front of the children, that is so damaging to the children. And so when the cops do that, the courts are supposed to take notice, and they're supposed to pay attention to the amount of severe harm that causes. Yet that's not what happened. Instead, the courts propagated the abuse, encouraged the harm by the police, and then would further extend these orders of protection. Again, never been given access to the court to be heard on the original violations. So fast forward to January 2020. In January of 2020, I went to the local courts, who were issuing me now criminal contempt, saying that I was in violation of the order of protection, even though they were never giving me access to the trial. January 4th, I went to the courts to file what's called a 30-30 motion to say that these charges were brought against me in July, and I've never been given access to the court to be heard on them. And I'm entitled under speedy trial and due process to a full and fair hearing, and therefore this needs to be thrown out. They didn't want to take it, and so instead they arrested me for not wearing a mask. And you can find that arrest video on lizziesarmy.com. And I want to show you, if I can here, just give me 1 second to organize. I want to show you on camera where you can look up and see the false arrests. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, first and foremost, Let me show you these here. If you go and click on these links, you'll be able to see the videos of me not being in violation of the order of protection, and then the cops coming and arresting me arbitrarily, saying that I was in violation. Then I would like to show you. Sorry. Okay, 27. Here we go. Okay. Here are the Dropbox videos, and I will get better at this. I'll learn how to adjust this so that I can show you these videos. But I was arrested for not wearing a mask when I went to go drop off those documents. And the sheer fact that that could even happen is absolutely ludicrous and extreme, and shows you the level of corruption that we're dealing with our courts and our cops. And our cops right now are being used as a militia against its own people. And so we as a humanity need to be aware of this and need to stand up for it. So if you look on those Dropbox, you'll see the false arrest and false imprisonment. I was then put into solitary confinement in Westchester County in the Valhalla jails. I know that sounds crazy, and it is. I was denied an arraignment. I was denied access to a lawyer. I was denied a phone call to my family or to let anybody know where I was. I was locked into a cell. They wouldn't feed me. I was vegetarian. They wouldn't give me vegetarian meals. They wouldn't give me a piece of paper. They wouldn't give me a pencil. They wouldn't give me a book. I was forced to participate in medical experimentation that I didn't want to. And I was forced to, it was horrific. I can't even get into all of that. If I go back into what happened to me when I was in prison, it's pretty severe. But I was there from January 4th to January 9th, given that I was being held on misdemeanor charges, and misdemeanors don't require bail. I was originally let out of that prison. I then filed a lawsuit in the Southern District of New York for the false imprisonment and the false arrest. That case number is 7-21-CV-01196-CS. I filed that case on March 8th, okay? On March 9th, which was the following day, I received an email from the court asking me to come to the court and receive receive documents. The court, and I thought, being silly, that the court was now going to act lawfully and allow me to be able to be heard in the court, or they were going to start participating and doing what they were supposed to do and give me my FOIA request forms. That's not what happened. Instead, what happened is I was kidnapped by defendant police officers, and they unlawfully chained me to a wall. Chained me to a wall for hours and held what they said was a conference with the judge. I was dragged in front of the judge without access to a lawyer again. They denied me any representation whatsoever or any witnesses, and two officers hand dragged me into the courtroom on a Tuesday, where in our village, in Briarcliff Manor Village, Judge Howard T. Code only sits on Wednesdays. So the fact that this was a ready and waiting courtroom on a Tuesday was extreme. This was on, again, March 9th of 2021. At that hearing, Judge Code declared me, he said I was incompetent, even though I told him I was of sound-minded body, fully competent, and that I understood all the charges against me. I told him what the charges were against me, which at the time were, it was obstruction of government administration 2, and it was disorderly conduct. I was arrested on disorderly conduct, but they changed and trumped up the charges because obstruction of government interference 2 has longer jail time. They then gave me, transferred me to jail, absent criminal charges. I was transferred to Valhalla jail again, where I was strip searched, bend over, spread your cheeks, the whole thing, disgusting, and locked into a cell. until they heard that a lawyer was coming to help me, at which time they took me out of the cell and transferred me to St. Vincent's Medical Center, where they committed me by judicial order without giving me a copy of the judicial order in any way. That was on March 8th. And March 8th, I filed the federal lawsuit. March 9th, the defendants in my federal case, defendant police officers and defendant judges, had me kidnapped, falsely committed against my will, with no, saying that it was by judicial order, but not providing me a copy of the order. No due process, no lawyer. Horrific, okay? This is what you have to understand is going on right now in America. This is what's happening, okay? You can find the, access to my cases online. If you go on and look up on casetext.com or on pacer.com, you can find that case 7-21-CV-01996-CS, okay? I then was falsely committed. I know under New York State mental health and hygiene laws 9.01 to 9.35, you are allowed access to the court within 5 days if you're being held against your will, and you submit a letter to the hospital to state that you'd like to have a full and fair trial. The court has 5 days by which to then take you to trial, bring you in front of the court, and they didn't do that. The New York State mental health and hygiene team, which was run at that time, not run, but the contact there was Melissa Toothill. She instead refused to submit the request to the court and delayed it a full 10 days. And I was not allowed access to the court to have a trial on the hearing for release. After 10 days, they had a hearing, and they denied me a lawyer. Melissa Toothill was acting inappropriately, and I did not want her to represent me. They denied me legal fees and access to a lawyer, and had to represent myself at that hearing. That was on the 19th, I believe, of March. At that hearing, they, hold on, let me just check and see if that was actually the date. At that hearing, I produced notes, daily handwritten notes on camera to show them that I was of sound mind and body and fully competent. Letters which I wrote daily. And letters which showed that the directors there told me that I was being held because I said, what signs do I have? Why am I being held here at this hospital? And they said, because you're accusing your husband of pedophilia. Additionally, you cause distress to people in the community. Those aren't means by which one can be held in a mental institution against your will. Suicidal or homicidal ideations are the only means by which you can be held. They weren't even hiding it. It was a complete kidnapping. It was one of the hospitals that my husband had committed to on his contract that he had signed with O'Connor Professional Group back in May of 2020. Okay, it's blatant. They're not even trying to hide it. Our courts, our system, and a mechanism of coercion, extortion, and control. And when you fight back, they retaliate, and they will arrest you with no criminal charges. They will put you in prison with no criminal charges. They will retaliate against you and try and declare you incompetent and use guardianship as a means by which to have control over you. This is not just my story, unfortunately. I just happen to have the evidence of it laid out for people, and this is kind of unruly, I know, showing you these on-camera Dropbox motions and pieces of paper, but I'm hoping that what you can see is that the evidence is here, and if you'd like for me to directly send you copies of this, I can, and then you can spend the time going through it. But I want to warn people, the stage that we are in this hostage takeover of our humanity, it's much worse than we'd all like to believe. These judges are not who they seem. These judges are worse criminals who use the public trust as a means to commit their crimes in plain view. So I submitted my case up through the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And when I did that, remember, my husband used to clerk for the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. So when I did that, if you go on, you will see case number, this is 21-1127 in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, document number 18, filed on May 14, 2021. Okay? They just black out the evidence. This is the acknowledgement of my husband's pedophilia in his texts and emails. And the court just deletes the evidence of it and hides it for him. This is not a situation, unfortunately, that is unique to me. But because my husband himself was a clerk, he does somehow get a little extra push from the court that you all need to be aware of, okay? So, but this is a well-groomed system. It's not that my husband's been able to get these good people who act lawfully, who are incredible and law-abiding people to suddenly commit crimes. This is a well-oiled system of coercion, trafficking, extortion, and control. And then he just knows how to tap into it. Maybe a little quicker, maybe a little easier than other people, but it's there for any criminal's taking. And until we understand that that's a true issue going on in our world today, and we tackle this issue of judicial immunity, and we understand that this tyranny, this judicial tyranny, is what's causing all of these unconstitutional mandates against us. Until we tackle that and understand that it's the judicial corruption that's at the root cause of all of these issues that we're facing. The reason why our elections are allowed to be corrupt, the reason why our children are being forced mask mandates that are unconstitutional, the reason why we have breaks in the Nuremberg Code, violations in the Nuremberg Code, and we're being forced and coerced medical experimentation is because our judges don't have integrity. But what they do have is this immunity that allows them to act unlawfully and criminally. And we have no recourse except to get the story out to the public and hope that eventually what's going to happen is two things. Either somebody's going to come in and do a full investigation of all of this, number one, or number two, people are going to wake up and understand that these are not systems there to help us, and instead are systems of extortion, coercion, and control, and that we can do something about it. So I'm getting my information out there so that you yourselves can see. So you see Second Circuit Court of Appeals blacks out all the evidence of my husband's pedophilia that I submit to them, okay? So then I submit an instant letter showing that they blacked it out, and I went on social media to point out how all that, how the Second Circuit was being used against me, and deleting evidence and tampering with files. All in violation of well-established laws, by the way. The next day, I want you to know this name, Catherine O'Hagan Wolfe, okay? She's a clerk of the Second Circuit, called me personally and told me that she was then going to remove my electronic filing privileges, that I would no longer be allowed to file documents into the Second Circuit Court of Appeals because she was arbitrarily and capriciously deciding not to allow me to, that it was up to her discretion and not a right of mine as a pro se plaintiff to file information into the court. I'm trying to see if I can pull up here for you that actual docket. Let me show you this here. Again, I know this is a lot to write down, but just for prosperity's sake, giving everybody access to all the documents themselves, should they wish to go in and see them. Here are the direct texts. My husband acknowledged his pedophilia and agreed to stay away from children. which were deleted by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Catherine O'Hagan Wolfe then tampered with my file, and let me see if I have a copy of this. I'm hoping that I do, but perhaps I don't. Sorry, I guess I don't have it right here. I don't want to spend too much time looking for it. Catherine O'Hagan Wolfe then called me personally, deleted my access to electronic filing, and then that prompted me to file my case with the U.S. Supreme Court. That, again, is case number 2114, and this was a case on the mask being arrested for not being able to medically tolerate a mask. My case was up through Scott Harris is a clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court, you can look at this online. If you go to docket case 2114, they refused to file any of my appendices in the U.S. Supreme Court. They refused to, they misfiled. My docket is being filed on the 8th when it was actually submitted on the 2nd. And that's the date by which my case should be determined to be submitted, because once it was submitted to them, anything that happened after them was after filing. So what the U.S. Supreme Court did is they went in and changed it to say that they docketed my case on the 8th, okay, even though it's clear that it was done before then, and it was received on the 6th, filed on the 2nd, received by the court's office on the 6th. They put it as received on the 7th, and then that all the information was docketed on the 8th, at which time the Second Circuit then went back into my file and changed their rulings and denied me access to the court. So when you see all of this, you can start to understand how these courts collude with one another and help one another through these devious means, right? Filing and the clerk's office is part of the biggest issue that you're going to face with the corruption. That's why it's so important that we as pro se's have electronic access to file, and we have full and available access to our file, okay? When you file things into the court, you don't know which of those things that they're actually removing from the file. So it's important to have electronic access at all times, and this idea that the court is able to withhold electronic access at their discretion only allows for massive corruption within the court. So the U.S. Supreme Court not only changed the dates of that I filed and then delayed docketing my file so that the lower courts could then go in and change their orders or issue new orders against me, but they also changed the rules under which I filed. When you go into my case, you can look at the case, you can see I filed under Rule 11 and Rule 20, which is extraordinary writ of certiorari before judgment. So this means that the lower courts have not made any judgment on my case yet, and therefore I'm coming to the Supreme Court with an urgent issue that needs to be heard immediately. So the U.S. Supreme Court changed that and said that I filed under 12.4, which was an enjoining of cases, which is not true. It didn't apply to me whatsoever. Yet my case was held, and I wasn't, heard nothing about it until October, at which time they denied me any relief. In the meantime, I had filed up through the U.S. Supreme Court in a second matter regarding these ex parte, ex post facto orders of protection that were issued against me with no hearing again. Let me bring this up to you. So you see, sorry, it's hard to see with this glare, but this order was issued on the 16th. And then says, and I'll just read it to you, maybe that's easier. April 16, 2021, per the 11th amended administrative order of the 9th Judicial District. This court was issued, this order of protection issued by this court on December 4th was extended to June 5th automatically. okay? Well, that's not the case. And I have letters going back and forth to the court where they were asking the court to extend the order, and the court did refuse to. So the court didn't extend the order as it was issued. And then a month later, after the order already expired, went and issued something on April 16th, and then willfully, fraudulently misrepresented it and backdated it through December 4th. It's absolutely atrocious. Ex parte, ex post facto orders are illegal under the Magna Carta. It's been that long that we've had that a tenet of our justice. They deny you notice. So saying, I'm going to issue an order today, and then I'm going to say that if you've done anything backdated to violate this order, I can arrest you and put you in prison, even though you had no notice, and even though that order wasn't in effect at the time that you committed that act. We all can see the lawlessness there. Yet, I was given these ex parte, ex post facto orders, and I then filed a federal lawsuit about those orders and about the corruption that was going on in the appellate courts to allow these ex parte orders without any chance to be heard on them. The U.S. Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor, same thing happened where they delayed the filing. They changed the dates that they received the documents and refused to publish any of my appendices, and then went and Sonia Sotomayor then later denied it. So if we're at a point, guys, where we've got ex parte, ex post facto orders of protection that can be issued without due process and not even served to you, and you can be unlawfully and immediately arrested on such, then what are we really talking about here? It's clear we don't live in a free and just society. It's clear that we instead live under tyranny, and the tyranny is coming from our judges. So after I filed this federal lawsuit, now that lawsuit is 7-21-CV, as in Charlie Vegas, 04543. After I filed that lawsuit, defendants in that case, then went to a different court and asked to get guardianship over me. Guardianship over a highly articulate, very competent woman who was being absolutely tortured by the courts and by my husband. I have been left homeless. I have been denied, I'm a multimillionaire. I've been denied all access to my homes, left homeless, left without any of my belongings. I have been denied access to my children. I have had all my court documents, my mail, everything seized from me. All based on these ex parte, ex post facto, sua sponte orders. That's where we are right now. And the U.S. Supreme Court, Mara Silver, won't return phone calls regarding the filings of these orders. They won't file the motions. They change the filing dates, or they withhold filing or docketing until such time that the lower courts can issue orders against me, and then that changes the trajectory of the case. We need to understand that this is going on in our system, and we need to stand up and face it bravely. Now, I don't know what other abuse is going to come at me. I'm being held in contempt for posting pictures of my children, saying that these are contempt orders of these ex post facto, ex parte orders of protection, that I am liable and can be held criminally liable or have fines brought by the court for violations of orders of protection that I've never actually been found guilty of in the first place. And that's what's happening right now. I'd like you to look at the cases directly, go on the U.S. Supreme Court docket site and look at the ways and see if you can see ways when you're looking at these documents, see if you can see all the ways that the court has changed the dates or changed the rules under which I filed. I'd like you to understand that the corruption in the courts starts and begins with the clerks. You're going to see that these are the clerks that begin to tamper with your file. These are the clerks that will withhold information. These are the clerks that will deny you access to the court. And when the clerks can do that so willfully and blatantly on its face, then it protects the judges. It offers a layer of protection because the judges haven't even issued you an order yet. So you can't show everybody how illegal the order is because you can't even get access to the court. In every single case that I've had, I have been denied access to the court. I haven't even been allowed a preliminary conference on my case, which shows clearly that I was arrested unlawfully for not being able to medically tolerate a mask. And I can't even get a preliminary conference on that. They are running scared. They know that we found them out. They know that they're a system of corruption. They know that they're a system of coercion, extortion, and human trafficking. They know, the judges know, that they are criminals committing their crimes in plain view. And they are only waiting until we all wake up and stand up and take back our rights. So right now, you have to understand that this issue of having my children trafficked and then being trafficked myself is not just my issue. There's another case as well that you can look at in New York in the Supreme Court, Dr. Mimi Epstein. She was a physician, and she was Judge Cooper, and had dropped off her daughter at school, and she was outside in New York City dropping off her daughter at school. And Judge Cooper took her daughter away from her because she wasn't wearing a mask. And now Judge Cooper is trying to traffic her into guardianship. These are crazy times that we're dealing with, guys. And I don't know what other punishment that I'm going to have to face for speaking out about the truth. But I know that speaking the truth is my only way forward. My only way forward. I live in light and love and integrity. I am a good and indisputable, good and protected mother. And I will not mortgage my children's future for a little bit of peace and comfort on my own. That won't bring me peace and comfort. So I have to show you how this is being done. I have to ask you to look at these cases yourself. Contact me directly, and I'll give you copies of all of the exhibits and the appendices so you can see for yourself how lawless this is. And understand Catherine O'Hagan Wolfe, Scott Harris, U.S. Supreme Court. You're going to look at Justice Sonia Sotomayor. You're going to look at Lord Taylor Swain, the Chief Judge, the Second Circuit, of the New York Southern District. Judge Jose Cabranes, who's the Second Circuit Court of Appeals judge that's been there, appointed under Clinton. These are not people who are enacting justice in their courts. These are people who are committing crimes in plain view. And it's up to us to stand up and to demand that our employees stop committing crimes against us. So thank you for staying connected, and thank you for hearing the evidence here. I'm sorry that it's a bit catch as catch can, and I would like to try and intertwine this with some more of the videos and figure out how to show you guys the direct evidence that you can see. And one thing that I should just touch on at the end of this. So my husband is using date rape drugs on the children. I have reason to believe, and evidence points to that my husband is using date rape drugs on the children, and they use them to break the children's will. It's horrific. It's atrocious. It is scary. Okay? But what happens is these abusers, when you can't figure out why your children are acting so defiantly and so opposite of how you know them to be, you have to consider the evidence that they are being tortured privately in ways that you can't imagine. And their will is being broken. And they, unfortunately, have to succumb to Stockholm Syndrome in order to be able to survive the abuse that they're being subjected to. And so I'm horrified to see that 17 and a half years I've raised my children, and they loved me and depended on me, and we were all very, very close. And now my children are robotic in the rare times that I've been allowed to see them or that I have seen them. They have been controlled, in a trance, detached in a way that only severe abuse and torture could allow. So it's horrific. And if you're going through the same thing, I'd ask you to reach out to me. Together we can get through this. Together we can help each other understand what's happening and try and make sense of it and have some compassion for our children, even when they act out against us, to understand that in order for them to get to that place, they had to have been severely tortured, and to have compassion and empathy for what they're going through. It is not my children's job to protect me. It is my job to stand up and protect the children. And I know that the truth protects the children. That's the way we're going to get through this, by unearthing the truth. Doing the right thing, taking the next right step anytime that you're at a loss and you don't know what to do. Taking the next right step is always the right thing to do. So, I know that this is a lot of information all at once, and I'd be happy to do whatever I can to give you the exact copies of this so you can see it. Feel free to contact me, 646-261-7685, or at LizzieHarding1@mac.com. You won't find me on Instagram or Facebook. The Supreme Court, after I started posting all the information about the corruption at the Supreme Court and how they refused to take my phone calls, tampered with my file, changed the rules under which I filed, and misdocketed the dates that they received the document so that they could then have the lower courts issue new orders. All of my social media was taken down. So, but I'm still here fighting. I'm going to face whatever I can do bravely. My husband would like you to think that this is all lawfully happening because I'm crazy. That is an insult to your intelligence. My competency is self-evident. I am very articulate and very well documented in what's happening. And that's the reason that they're trying to silence me. So thank you for staying connected. Please save this story. Please share it wherever you can so people can look at this evidence for themselves and we can start really uncovering how deep this corruption goes. It's all the way up to the Supreme Court, guys, and we've got to change it. And as scary as it might sound, avoiding the problem or denying the problem isn't going to change it. It's only when we have proper attribution of the problem and tackle it head on can we ever get to any real results. So I'm throwing myself on the sword, trying to get that done for everybody, and ask you if you have evidence of the corruption in the courts, that you're very honest and out and straightforward about it, and continue to file all that you can and show us in public and on any forum that you have available to you so we can unearth all of this corruption. Thank you so much, guys, for staying connected. Be well.